Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk about something that puzzles a lot of trauma survivors. And it is quite difficult to understand until you are trauma informed. And that is, why is it that the things that were said to me in my childhood, abusive things, still affect me as an adult? Why haven't I been able to just shove them off, not be bothered by them? Is there something wrong with me? Something I'm not doing right? Am I just weak and pathetic that I'm still bothered by these things? No, you're not any of those things. Child psychologists tell us that it takes till your very late teens to be able to have what's called lateral thinking. What is lateral thinking in this particular instance, you may ask? Let's take an example. Let's say a colleague comes into work, or a friend, an old friend, comes to tea. Somebody who's usually very mild-mannered and somebody very well-balanced. But this day, they come in and they're abrupt and they're grumpy and they brush you off. They don't even say hello, and they're just not themselves. It's very easy for people to personalize that and to go, oh, God, I wonder what I did. But what lateral thinking allows us to do, instead of taking things personally, we're able to go, I wonder what happened to Jo or Claire on her way into the office today. It must have been terrible traffic, or, he must have had a row with his wife doing that kind of a mood when he gets here. In other words, we are able to put their mood into a wider context and not to personalize it and feel guilty for every time somebody comes into the office or into our home in a bad mood, thinking that we've done something to cause it. As I said, it takes us until our late teens to be able to actually attain that skill. So younger children and young teens have what child psychologists call concrete thinking. Now, what do I mean by that? What do they mean by that? It's this. A child's brain has not developed enough until its late teens for it to be able to use lateral thinking. So it actually takes personally and as the truth everything that is said to him or her. So when a parent in a bad mood storms into the bedroom and says, "Come on, you rugrats, get up and get ready for school. I am so bloody tired of having to every morning say this to you. And as for you, little un, you really getting on my nerves. God, you are a pain in the arse." Or when a teacher, somebody significant to us, says, "What kind of a score is this? God, you're just stupid, aren't you, Alan? Stupid." We're not able to go, "Well, you know what? Mum and Dad have got financial worries. And so she's not herself today and she's a bit grumpy. She doesn't really mean what she's saying to me." No. You personalize it. You take it as a fact being spoken about you. Same with a teacher, scout leader, Sunday school teacher, aunt, uncle, grandmother, anybody who is significant to you in your life as a child, as a young teenager. When they voice an opinion to you, it's going to seem to you as if it was the truth, as if it was real. We're not able to put it into a lateral thinking framework. Now, it's called concrete thinking for a purpose because it sets like concrete into the child's developing mind as the truth about them. They've taken it really personally. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that, okay? I had a client, very good-looking young man in his sort of late 20s, early 30s, in a responsible job he loved, and from your average kind of home, there wasn't outrageous abuse, but what he was finding was, and the reason he came to see me, was that he couldn't seem to keep a girlfriend for more than a couple of months. And even his group of friends, sometimes he found out, were actually going off and doing things without including him. And he knew that there was something about him that was causing this, but he didn't understand what it was, and he certainly didn't understand why he did it. Girlfriends used to say he was smothering. So we talked, and over our months of sessions, I began to talk to him one day about this concrete thinking and about how, as children, we tend to take on board things that were said in the heat of the moment, an opinion, as fact, as the truth about us, as something that was actually meant. And he went, "Oh my God, wow." And I said, "Okay, what aha moment are you having?" And he said, "Gosh, I'm remembering something." And I said, "Okay, tell me, let's talk about it." And he then narrated to me that when he was 7 years old, his mum had put him to bed, and his bedroom was above the living room. It wasn't a very big house. And then she went downstairs. Now, Mum and Dad were a bit fiery, and there were often rows in the house, but, they didn't really come to anything. But this particular night, it was a big bang clanger of a row. For you Americans, that's an argument. Going on below him in the living room. And he could hear every crash, bang, wallop of a verbal affray. Nothing physical, but screaming and shouting and all of that. Now, this caused him to become upset, distressed. He couldn't sleep. He was worried. So he tiptoed downstairs and he stood outside the closed living room door. They didn't know he was there. And he just listened. And all of a sudden, the door was pushed open and his mother stormed out of the room, surprised, saw him, and pointed her finger at this little 7-year-old and said, "Oh, God, it's your fault I'm in this awful marriage. It's your fault that I'm so unhappy. If it wasn't for you, I could be gone." And she stormed off. Now, obviously, because of concrete thinking and a lack of lateral thinking context, this young lad took this not as an opinion of hers, voiced out of the difficulties that she was experiencing in the moment, but as the fact spoken to him by his mother about who he is. Personal and true. And it's called concrete as well because if a parent, and let's face it, as a parent, we all tend to say things in the heat of the moment that we don't mean. But if we come back very quickly, I've done it myself, if we come back very quickly and say, "Oh, listen, darling, what I just said, pay no heed to it. Mummy's upset. Mummy's not in a very good mood. Mummy's not feeling very well," whatever it is, and say, "I didn't mean that. And here's what's true about you." And then to correct that statement. If that's not done, then that opinion that's taken as fact sets like concrete into the underdeveloped, developing mind of the youngster. It sets there. It becomes part of their bottom line self-belief. So what happened with my client was that from then on, looking back, he was now able to realize, having had that aha moment, that from then on, he saw himself as personally responsible for whether his mother was happy or not, because he believed that her unhappiness was because of him. And he began to become more clingy and to sort of hover, if you like, and to always check up to see how mummy is. And that, of course, then carried on into other relationships. So when he finally began dating, let's go straight to the issue he came with, he wasn't of the opinion that everybody is responsible for their own happiness. No, He had taken on board the concrete set belief that he was responsible for his girlfriend's happiness, for whether his group of pals were all getting on all right, to see if everybody in the group was doing fine. And he became a bit of a mother hen, became a bit smothery. And when this aha moment hit him in that counselling room, he suddenly went, it was just an opinion, wasn't it? It wasn't the truth about me. And I said, no, it wasn't the truth about you. She spoke an opinion based in the issues she was having at the time. She did not speak an objective fact about you. But because you were young, impressionable, that opinion set like the truth and became a self-belief. And then because it was a self-belief, it became a behavior that you acted out unconsciously in order to make sure that you were safe. Because if mummy was happy, then you were safe. And if your girlfriend's happy, you're safe. And if your friends are happy, you're safe. And if your work colleagues are happy, you're safe. We become people pleasers. It wasn't his fault that this was how he behaved as an adult. It was a process begun within him as a child, a trauma response, a traumatic event, an abusive, unintentionally word spoken. And for those of you who've been raised in homes where abusive words are spoken intentionally to you as a young child, as a young person, then those words are even harsher, and they have become part of your self-belief, your self-concept, and therefore you have acted out accordingly in your life. I bet there's some aha moments going on in your brain now. But it's not your fault, and it's not the truth about you. And I said to that young man, and I reiterate it to you, that you can be free of living in line with that opinion you took on board those years ago. And we worked together, this young man and I, over the weeks and months, and eventually he felt fine enough to discharge himself. And, oh gosh, we were living in the same town, and so it must have been about a year later, I was out with some friends, and suddenly I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I looked round, and there he was. I hadn't seen him for a year, and he was beaming, big beaming smile, and he said to me, Karen, hi. I said, oh, hello. And he said, come with me, I want you to meet my girlfriend. We've been dating for 6 months, and it's going well. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. He said, Karen, I'm learning to be free. I'm learning not to behave in accordance with the opinion that was voiced to me in a heated moment by my mother and make that my self-belief. I realize now that everybody is responsible for their own happiness. I went over and there was this lovely young woman. We chatted for a few moments and then I left them. It is possible to recover from the damaged self-belief that we take on, from things voiced to us in heated moments or with intent by abusive people, whether they're school bullies, bullies in the workplace, whoever they are. So I want to encourage you. But knowledge is power. And I wanted to pass that on to you because I know when I first learned it, I found it incredibly freeing. But also, I want to impress upon you that you have harbored, through no fault of your own, that opinion as part of your self-belief for many, many, many years. I had too. It's also become kind of insidiously encapsulated into your behavior day to day, whether it's people-pleasing, whether it's not trusting, whether it's pushing people away, whether it's being a workaholic, whether it's being rather arrogant, whether it's being insecure, whatever that early trauma did, and however it became inculcated into your particular system, it's not going to go away overnight. We live in a push-button society. You put 50p or a pound into a machine and boom, out comes a Coca-Cola. We are trained that things happen quickly. And if they're not happening quickly, then there's something wrong. But in this case, if recovery isn't happening quickly, that's got nothing to do with there being something wrong with you. I used to think that, oh, God, why aren't I healed yet? Why aren't I walking in recovery? Maybe it's something I'm not doing. Maybe it's something I am doing. Oh, God, it's me again, isn't it? I'm the stupid, pathetic one. No. A farmer doesn't stand over a seed planted in the soil and go, for God's sake, why can't I see you yet? Why haven't you become a potato? No, he knows there's a process. He knows the sun's got to shine, the rain's got to come, the frost's got to fall, it's got to get dark and wintry, and then spring will come. And after months of a natural rhythm, growth happens. And it's the same with us. So do not expect, as you do the work, to remind yourself that that is not the truth about you, that you are free to explore and discover who you really are, and to know you're safe, and to know that you are amazing, that you are not the things that were said to you. As you begin to re-find yourself through therapy, if you can afford it, through counseling, through getting more information, through watching incredibly good blogs and videos that can be found on YouTube and Facebook, Google. If you put in there trauma recovery, recovery from childhood abuse, all those sorts of things, you will find effective tips and guidance. But like I said, don't expect that it's going to happen overnight, and it's not your fault if it doesn't. It's not meant to. A bone doesn't break overnight. But somehow we see mental health as different. It's not. It takes time. And I want to reiterate that you were not what people voiced of you in the heat of the moment or out of an abusive context. You were born a beautiful human being, came into this world a blank slate, or as they say, terra rasa, blank paper. And we only learn about who we are and how to behave in the world from what other people write on that piece of paper. And if they're writing, you're stupid, you're pathetic, you're a waste of space, you're in the way, you'll never amount to anything, you're the reason I'm unhappy. If they're saying negative things, then we take on those negative self-beliefs. It's not your fault. But if they write good things, then that's why some people have good self-esteem. And so there becomes a process of unlearning, erasing, if you like, scribbling out the bad stuff that got written on our blank slates when we arrived, and replacing it with actual truth, that you're beautiful and you're worth loving. Take care.